So I decided to re-roll my Necromancer after playing it for a good while. I decided I wanted to try a new spec, so I'm going to be trying Painworking here. I've actually been enjoying it a lot more than Death Sight. Death Sight's just a pretty boring spec. After you play it for a little bit, you know exactly what you're going to do. But this spec forces you to play a little bit differently, a little bit more creatively, and use a lot more tools, and I find that to be a bit more fun. So we're going to pull this Marshcrag here, and we're going to open up with our armor factor debuff, and then we're going to immediately go into our PBAOE dot. And the timing usually works out so that, he's able to get it off right when the mob gets to him. But we got resisted on this one, so I'm going to need to follow up with another one here. And there we go. And now we're just going to heal. And we're kind of sub-speccing into Death Servant just to get a few buffs. And just have another instance of damage that we're able to put out in the damage shield. It's not much, but it adds up. And it's just taking advantage of all the resources we have available to us, like the pet's HP and the damage output of the mob. Like, we're able to manipulate that just a little bit with this damage shield. Sometimes against yellow cons, you got to cast the dot twice. I didn't really need to do it there, but talking, so I kind of messed up, but it's all good. So I found it to be honestly a little bit more efficient than I expected it to be. Hold on, he dropped an item there. For some reason, it didn't pick it up. Let's see what that was that we got. It's a reinforced studded helm, so we can't use it, but that's cool. That'll sell for a good little bit. So let's try this again. Let's throw up Flesh of the Living on our zombie servant, and then we'll pull with armor factor and immediately go into our PBAOE dot. And that's looking much smoother. So the PBAOE dot has a radius of 350, which is surprisingly large. And in my testing, like, I never actually knew how quickly mobs or the player moved in this game. So I did some testing to figure this out. And it turns out that the player moves at about 200 units per second once you get past your... So there's like an acceleration here that you have to overcome. But after that, you're moving at about 200 units per second, which means it takes 5 seconds to cover 1,000 units of distance, which is the range of like a lot of spells, right? But mobs move slightly slower, maybe 190, but we can still call it 200. So basically, whenever you get max range on a mob with this spell, with this range, this one's 1,500, right? So you don't even need to be max range. But if you're at about, we can type ground set 1,000, and that's about the distance, right? And we can usually get 3 spells off from this distance. Like, we can do Glimpse of the Grave and then a life tap, and then we can get our dot off usually. And that's pretty cool. I really enjoy just kind of optimizing and figuring these things out. And you can even do some tricky, interesting stuff with like snares to manipulate things. Doesn't really pair super well with the dots, but if you're in a tricky situation, you can always, just throw a snare up and then run away and start doing some stuff. So let's just go here again. So let's actually test. Let's see if we can get... so that's our max range for us. Right, so we should be able to cast from here. So let's open with AF and then go into the life tap here. And then we'll just go into the dot. And that might hit. Yeah, we still got it on him. And then now we're able to put our other dot, our heal, and our damage shield on our pet. And it's obviously not the most efficient way to play. But Death Sight, it's pretty brainless, and it's not necessarily the most fun, and you don't always have to play like the most optimal efficient thing, right? Like, if it's fun, go do it, right? So, and I find this to be pretty fun, and I think once I get a little bit higher level, it'll be pretty interesting to try to pull like multiple blues, throw up a good damage shield and hit them with dots, and just see what you can do. And like I said, surprisingly, like it's not that inefficient. Like, my power doesn't go down that much. Like, we're casting a decent amount of spells, but like they don't cost that much. You're not really spamming them. You're able to recuperate in between fights, or while the fight's happening. You can just sit and get like a lesser power increase, since you're technically in combat but you are sitting. So let's go on ahead and just keep it going. So let's check our distance here. Yeah, so like 1500 is pretty long range, but that's all right. So we'll just go ahead from here. And then we'll just cast our PvE. And that radius, I'll show it after this fight. I'll show it right now, actually. So the radius is 350. So anything in this radius around the pet is going to get hit with that. So like it's surprisingly large. It's larger than the visual effect would lead you to believe. So yeah, it's just really cool. Something I found I didn't really love was playing the Death Sight like in a dungeon. Like I couldn't really like manipulating the pet's position to like be able to cast was kind of a pain. And I figure if I don't love this spec, I might just reroll again and play a pure Death Servant. Just all buffs all the time. See how that goes. But it's been a pretty good time playing the Necro here. And he just misses like 5 times in a row. That's great. Jeez. Sometimes RNG is not in your favor. So this is why I have a slight spec into Death Servant, so I can do a direct damage if I need to. Like he has just missed every time in a row. This is actually insane. I can't believe that. I can't believe I didn't die though. Like he just missed like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 misses in a row. That's actually insane. 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, that feels like something's wrong because he actually missed 13 times in a row. That doesn't seem possible. Like RNG's RNG, right? But like that's just so probabilistically unlikely. Like it's kind of insane. Like RNG can definitely be streaky, and it leads to like weird little conspiracy theories people do about like, oh well, the game wanted me to die because I'm close to level, right? Like you've heard that before, I'm sure, but that's just the way it is sometimes. And yeah, it can definitely suck. And if I wasn't talking and I realized it sooner, I could have just threw out this low level nuke that I have and finished the fight earlier. And that's, you know, as kind of sucky as that situation was, that's what makes it just a little more fun. Like, you have to pay attention, you have to just do a little bit more, you know, with the game than just Death Sight, which is just, you know, kill everything before it gets to you. And another interesting thing about that is like, okay, my mob was, the enemy mob was nearly dead, but my pet had a lot of HP, but he missed a lot, but the enemy mob was still hitting. So if I had damage shield up, that he would have died, like the enemy would have died, you know, because we're taking advantage of his incoming attack, right? Like, so just little things you can always improve, and just, it's a kind of a different way to think about the game and how to approach it. And I'm sure there's people who've played Death Sight before. It's not like a totally bespoke idea, right? Like it's been a spec for many, many years. Alright, so let's make sure we get our damage shield up. And this is just really cool to me to be taking advantage of, like, you know, 2 dots, a damage shield. My pet has a heal going on him. He also has, like, you know, a melee attack. Like, it's just so much stacking up to make the fights feel pretty good. So we just dinged 12, and we got a new dex buff, a new pet, and a new snare, which I don't really use that often. But so we're gonna release our pet, summon a new one, and it's actually a new type. I'm pretty sure it's just a reskin. I don't know if these lower level pets have different properties. I'm pretty sure the one at 20 is like a better caster than like the Abomination, that kind of thing, but I honestly don't remember, and it's just something you have to test. Yeah, so this guy is like more of a, you know, a humanoid zombie. I don't really know how to explain him. I wonder if he's better at something. Like, does he cast faster? Does he have a heavier hitting melee attack? Like, who knows? So let's actually think about that. So the zombie servant, he's hitting for 17 to 23, something like that. And this is with a armor factor debuff. So we'll compare and contrast the efficacy of this pet against these marsh scrags. I think I got enough mana to do it, so let's just pull here with, let's get a little closer. Pull with Glimpse of the Grave. And we'll start our PvAOE. Yeah, so he doesn't look like he's like implicitly hitting harder because of the type. Pretty sure any damage increase is probably because of his level. He did just hit 27 there, but again, he is one level higher than the previous pet. One of the downsides of having to summon a new pet is like that's the thing that does cost a lot of mana, so you'll quickly be low on power and have to deal with that. And one of the things about this game, if I recall correctly, is like the lower power you are, the slower it regenerates. Like if you're on like the bottom 25% of power, like it kind of punishes you for depleting. And I think if you're like in the upper 75 percentile, like it'll recover quite quickly. It's like, okay, like you were efficient and you're like managing your power correctly, therefore it's going to go up quicker, because this seems pretty slow. And I'm curious to review the footage later after the fact and just see like, is that true? Like once it gets up to a certain point, does it start going up quicker or you know, bigger chunks? It's something I heard, it's something I thought was true. It's hard to say. And that may be some custom server I was playing somewhere, and that's just the rules they had. I honestly don't recall. Yeah, so let's get back to it. Once again, pull with our armor factor debuff. Get our PvAOE dot going. And it's kind of crazy the amount you do every round. Like, you're doing probably 60, 70 damage per round at level 12 for very little cost, and it's a lot. I feel like we're pretty good to go again, so let's just get our positioning correct. And one of the things that I'm a little concerned about, like I've had situations where I've had a lot of ads, like fighting like 3 or 4 blues at a time, and this character is definitely able to do it, but if he had multiple yellows, I'm not sure. So that was one of the problems with Death Sight that I didn't love, was like if you ever messed up or you got to add, can't really do that much, right? Like if Facilitate Painworking is up, like maybe, but if you mess that up, like you're just kind of screwed. Not much you can do. Whereas this class it feels like it, or the spec rather, feels like it's a lot more versatile, all things considered. And as fun as the Necro is, playing Death Sight and always having full power, like it almost feels like you're like cheesing the game, like breaking it in a way it wasn't really intended. That said, I don't really know what their intention was with Death Sight. Like it's way too powerful. But you know, maybe they thought the PvE balance would make up for the fact that, you know, Necros aren't good in RVR. Like who knows? I honestly don't. What's one of the interesting things about game design back then though? Like they were willing to take risks and do weird stuff. They didn't necessarily super care about balance, and I think that's like just something that's really cool about games from that era. Whereas now everything's so flat. It's like, well, if this class isn't completely equal in power to that class, then we failed as a game company. And it's just like, I don't like that. I don't agree with that. Like, I think it's fine for there to be asymmetries in the context of Dark Age. Like, as long as the realm is balanced, right? Like Hibernia and Albion as a realm are balanced. Like, that's okay. You can have differences within the classes. Like for example, like the AUG healer, right? Like being able to throw celerity on all the melee characters in a group in RVR, like that's really cool. Who gets the celerity buff in Hibernia? Oh god, I don't remember, putting myself on the spot. I wanted to say it was a warden, but I don't remember. But like it's just they're kind of, it's just asymmetric as to like where it comes from, because like a healer is going to be like a really high priority target, so it could very well likely die. And then like you know, a pack healer having like a PBAOE stun, or not PBAOE, just the area of effect 9-second stun or whatever, 7-second. Like that's really cool. That gives Midgard like, you know, an advantage in that way. But then you have, you know, the extra long range mezzes on sorcerer and stuff like that. Then like the other realms have instant casts, and it's just, you know, as long as it balances out in the end, like it's fine. And I think that's kind of what made this game cool, was just the way it wasn't all the same. It's like, okay, you're playing a bard, or you're playing a skald, or you're playing a minstrel, and they're all the exact same thing. Like they're not at all. They have the same role, but they're different, and that's cool. So one of my goals with this character is to, you know, I really want to get 50 on this one. I'm enjoying this much more than the Death Sight, so probably going to be playing this a decent bit and putting out some videos of the journey. So hopefully you enjoy checking out something kind of weird and off meta. That is something I do like. I like playing weird specs that like things that people say is like, oh, that's not viable, that's not a valid playstyle. I like to see why. Like why do you feel that way? Is there any merit to it? Is it stronger than we thought? That kind of thing. And yeah, Painworking's not like the strongest thing I've ever seen, but like it's fun. I actually somebody I know decided to play some Dark Age after I'd been talking about my little journey here. They're playing on Uthgard, but they're playing on Hibernia. It's like, no, could have had somebody to play with, but they chose wrong. We'll put it that way. And yeah, I kind of wonder, like, what are the upper bounds for like what I can do? Like, can I pull like 5 blues at a time and tank through it? Like, that's kind of why I'm like splashing into Death Servant here, just to get a little bit of extra buffs. You know, I just thought of something with this spec. I think there's a ABS buff, an absorption buff, and I think that comes from Death Sight. And that might be kind of a pain to not have if I'm trying to pull a bunch of mobs. So I'll have to reevaluate this. Just kind of think of like, you know, do we need to splash like into 3 specs and do something like that? Like, because that's a really powerful part of the class. But maybe it's not necessary. So we're level 12. I think this is about where I deleted the last Necromancer. So we're finally surpassing the previous Nukti. And I'm pretty excited about that. I'm not really sure where I'm going to go after this camp. I've just kind of been hanging out, killing these marsh scrags, and there's like a church to the south somewhere. Church ruins. I was fighting there for a while. But everything started to social. I don't know why. Like, I was able to solo pull mobs, like, no problem. And then I would pull one of the knights, and like, the knight would come, a squire would come, another knight would come, and then like a frog would come, and I was just like, I'm not AoEing, like I'm single pulling with like Glimpse of the Grave, but like everything was social, and it was really strange. And again, similarly to how I missed like 11 times in a row, like it could have just been bad RNG, like everything rolled correctly to like, you know, oh, we're gonna go help, who knows. So yeah, we'll take out this marsh scrag here. That's going to put us pretty close to leveling up, just a couple bubbles away. That is one of the nice things about this. Like if you notice, I think I get like 1 bubble per mob. And that definitely adds up very quickly when you're able to kill yellows. The Death Sight, like I know you can kill yellows, but like if you get resisted on incoming, like it can be pretty sketchy. And you got to dump all your mana into life taps, and like it just didn't super feel great. Whereas with this, as long as I get my dot off, which I get several tries with the on incoming and then with facilitate painworking, right? You know, I'm going to be able to kill the mob, which feels really good. So I'm going to call this one here. On the next video, I'm expecting to be closer to level 20, and we'll share the journey of Nukti. So thanks for hanging out, and hope you have a good one. Bye.